Okay, there's that. You go from there, you got it? Yep. Thank you. Hey, Adam.
Hey Kathy, how you doing? I didn't get a chance to talk to Brandon by the time he called me back. I just was busy.
Okay,
But do you have time to chat with me just for a
I
minute?
do. I sure do. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the deal with that property?
Um,
It's Airbnb now.
Yes.
I don't understand.
So what is very common when people have rentals of any kind, whether they're long-term rentals or short-term, is many times don't want the tenant to even know that the property's on the market. But in the case of Airbnb, they do not want to interrupt or disturb tenants who are, the short-term tenants are there. So what they do is they only allow curb offers, and that means that you look at the pictures and you make an offer based on what you see without entering the home, with a contingency written in that you can either terminate the contract or renegotiate the contract after you've seen the property. So what they want is to see that you are a serious viable buyer, that you're pre-approved, that you've signed your name on a purchase contract before they disturb tenants. And then in the case of Airbnb, they will often ask you to wait to view it in between guests. Like they'll say, the next availability we have with nobody in the house is November 6th or something. So we have to wait until November 6th to get in the house and take a look at it. So it just, you absolutely could, is go in and rent it. And so if that's the kind of property you're looking for, you're gonna run into that a lot, that you either can't see it at all before, or it's very limited viewing until we have an accepted contract.
Sure, and just so I'm not wasting your time, right? I mean, this is something I'm seriously considering, but it's gotta be a really good deal.
Yeah.
Meaning the cap rate's gotta make sense, and it's gotta be a good investment.
So what we normally ask for, and I sold two Airbnbs this year. So yeah, so what we usually have prepared and what we should ask for as a buyer is their profit and loss for the previous year. And then, whatever numbers they have to show you everything from what they're charging to the percentage of time that the property's rented. What are they paying to have it cleaned? What are their management fees? All of that, so that you can look at it. Now, this one says that it is, and also I know the two that I sold, the buyer, one was a very well-rated Airbnb, the other had very poor ratings, and all of the buyers had checked that out. Like all of the buyers had gone in and read reviews and checked Airbnb, that sort of thing. So that is the expectation, is that you would be doing that.
Oh, yeah, definitely did that already. I'm on
Yeah.
board with that. I just, the P&L statement is something I was gonna ask you about, if I very thinking that way.
Yeah.
Glad you've already got experience doing all this, so yeah. I mean, maybe what I'm asking for is unrealistic, so.
Well-
With I've got a property where my cap rate's like 14%, 15%, so it's doing very well.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what the Columbus market is like. I've been trying to do research, and it's kind of all over the map on whether or not it makes any sense. From a return.
Would it be helpful to you to talk to a realtor locally who does a lot with Airbnbs? I mean, I certainly want to represent you, but in the process of marketing these two Airbnbs, I ran into her because she looked into buying one of them. And she was extremely helpful. Like, she knew the market, she knew what to expect, what to look for. Would that be helpful to you to talk to someone like that in the local market?
In the local, like Columbus.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but how does that work for you if I talk to her?
Well, I'm just saying for information. Yeah, no. She'd be doing you a favor. She'd be doing me a favor, saying, look, can this guy call you? He has some questions. And I know with me, because I was, she was on the first, she educated me, is what she did. It was the first Airbnb. She goes, okay, Kathy, this is what you should be looking for. And she sat down and schooled me, you know. And then I had a much better idea about it, and she's just a very nice person. So I'd have to go dig up her name. It's in my phone somewhere, but again, it might be good for you to talk to someone who's already operating Airbnbs in this market. She describes herself as a boutique, meaning she doesn't own 50 of them. She has 5 or 6. But she certainly, you know, knows her stuff.
I see.
And
Is she a realtor as well?
she's also a realtor. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, realtors are very often, if you looked at any county investment roles, they're all investors as well. And so some of them have just chosen to get into that space. Others do flips, you know, that sort of thing. So, so anyway, yeah, it would be, you know, again, don't have to, but the thing I was going to ask you is on your search. So do you want an Airbnb that's already up and running, or are you possibly looking at a property that you could make an Airbnb?
The numbers have to make sense. And
Okay.
the rest of that, I don't care. I mean, I'm already doing the Airbnb thing. I've already got a really good reputation, you know, like, so that
Yeah,
ideally it is something to already be an Airbnb, because like you said, if the prophet wants it, you can already see how it's doing.
right.
You know, that kind of stuff would be really helpful. So I am, just to make sure it's clear, I'll talk to this other person, but you're still my person, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no question. And, but again, it's actually the reason I'm suggesting her is because she probably has a knowledge base. She probably speaks your language better than I do. I can certainly find a home and represent you as a realtor, but in terms of, you know, getting the lay of the land locally, a realtor like that probably would be worth a conversation.
Sure.
Just to,
Maybe a couple of
yeah.
actions I can go do.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then the other question I had, and again, well, this one that you picked that you wanted to see is in the Grandview, Victorian Village downtown area. Is that an area you want to target? Like, do you want near Ohio State? Is there?
Yes, near Ohio Stadium, and here's my thinking, and this is where the realtor could tell me I'm crazy, right? My thinking is, you know, the closer you get to Collins, the more rental potential you have. Doing some analysis online, it's actually showing the opposite. So I don't know what to believe, my own gut feeling, or what some of the data out there is showing me. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. But really, what I want is something that's in a very walkable area, you know, fun type atmosphere. That's how it's
Sure.
That has a lot of rental potential. So I thought downtown near the stadium, you know, every weekend
Yeah.
it's going to be red.
Well,
It's not just for the Buckeye games.
Yeah.
You've got basketball, you've got hockey, you've got all that stuff.
well, the two that I have listed, one was a campus area, and that was largely his traffic, parent weekends, you know, friends coming down, things like that. But really, the one that was the most profitable, ironically, was the one that was poorly rated. Was one that was in the hospital district. They had right near Children's Hospital and what's the hospitals, New England Grove City. Yeah, and it was booked solid. It was almost like, you know, we hated staying here because it was dirty and nothing worked, but I stayed here for a month, you know. and so because there was so little around there, but this guy said, I mean, because you always have parents needing a place to stay coming into Children's Hospital. You have medical students coming in, you have interns coming in, you have a constant traffic in the medical field with people needing a place to stay while they're doing something at the hospital. So that is just south of that whole area. It's between downtown and German Village. is that hospital corridor where you have, Children's, which is taken over South Columbus. I mean, it's got a, 4-mile campus down there. So, you have that, and then, Grove City, which is south of there, they have a new hospital too, that is, down in that area. So there is, that's an option. So what I would suggest doing is kind of spread your net, maybe, campus and south. And then you also have the people coming in for German Village and, all that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So I think the best place to start would just be, let's see if you can at least give me the P&L statement for the property that we're interested in. First.
Okay. Sure.
That gives me an idea, and also want to know why they're selling. If it's
Okay.
Airbnb, it looks like it's an investment, couple, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
If it's doing well, it's like, it kind of stinks. Why are they trying to sell it?
Yeah.
Unless they desperately need money for a bigger project or something.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
know why they're selling it, and I want to see the profit and loss.
Okay. I'll reach
I'm
out.
not gonna, just so you're aware too, I'm not gonna have, I'm not going to banks for pre-approval and all that stuff. It's just, I've got cash. I don't need the banks to help and stuff like that. So, I've got multiple businesses, I'm not gonna spend time when I'm not 100% certain I want to do this in the initial stages.
Sure.
It makes sense to do this.
Okay, and remind me who your parents are. Who did I help? Oh.
We were the ones where my dad was sick and you were doing lots of video tours.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
good. How are they, by the way?
They're doing great. They bought a house. Like I said, it was right where my sister's in-laws live in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob, selling this house. Do you know anybody's interested?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we ended up
Good.
buying it, and they gutted it. They completely gutted it and built exactly what they wanted. They were so picky.
good.
I was like, oh my gosh.
No,
That's
it's great.
You're never gonna find the perfect house. It's your budget, you're gonna have to do something.
Sure.
So they ended up, my dad's pretty handy, I feel a lot better. You'd be impressed.
Good.
It's definitely gonna sell well someday when they wanna sell.
Good.
One level, it's done well, it's in a really mature neighborhood.
Yeah, where did they end up building?
Cobblestone.
Okay, in Westerville,
Cobblestone,
is it?
Cobblestone Road,
Okay,
Dickerington.
good. Well, good. I am glad, and I hope that, that's almost the only way to do it sometimes, when you've owned a few houses and you know what you're looking for, it just becomes harder.
They bought something that existed, but they had to completely gut it.
Sure.
Stairs and move walls and all that stuff. But they got what they wanted at the end of the day. It's a nice house.
Okay, well, look, and Adam, thank you for calling me, and I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I am going to set up a search for you on the MLS, and I'll just link it to you. Could you text me your email address? And,
Sure, the searches don't really help me as much. Because at some point, it's more noise, it just becomes noise.
okay, so do you want the search or not?
I want it like daily.
Okay.
I don't really need the search. I need to like point me to the right direction.
Good.
Or if you're downtown or one of your realtors is downtown and this house come up that you're
Sure.
intimately familiar with or whatever, like that's what I'm doing.
Okay, all right,
I just too much information sometimes I just don't choose for.
okay, sounds good, Adam. I'll do some research on this one and get back with you. And in the meantime, I'm gonna text Brandon real quick, tell him he does not need to give you a call.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Could you get your lockbox off the house, please? Question mark. I would appreciate it. Thanks. Hey there, how are you doing? Hello. Hi. So Carol, are you adjusting to the rhythms? of the has James gotten into any kind of schedule?
No, but that's like the most stressful thing is that we're trying so hard, but John is like just so much better with him. 'Cause I'm
Really?
Yeah, nervous for him to go back. Like I tried to put him to bed last night, and he was not having it, and John was there 5 minutes later, he was out.
Oh, really?
He's like, I think it's just because I'm bigger than you and I'm warmer, so it makes me so like, so I'm bony, I'm a bad mom and I'm bony, like,
You're old and bony.
yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, I can't imagine. I know it's really stressful. I just,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's funny when I listen to both Lindsay and Ben and Jordan and Haley. Cause you know, you've got it all figured out until the baby's here. And then you're like, okay, none of that worked.
All the things we bought, we don't need, and all the things we need, we don't have.
Yeah, it's funny. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to talk to each of you about, Dayla said to me, she goes, okay, what do you think is a class that we're needed? And I said, I'll tell you where I need a class. How to deal, like how to decipher this market that we're in. It is just crazy, and I know you are too, dealing in it. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I think I know most of you, Kathy Chiero. Tell me, if you would, what your challenges are, what you're seeing happening in the market and what your challenges are. I'll pick on you, Carol, because you have to answer.
Okay, I've never written a request to remedy in my career. So I will admit, I've only been licensed since 2020.
Yeah.
Understanding request to remedy, what's reasonable to ask for, what's not reasonable to ask for, how to handle that. And then price reductions, like understanding how much is 5,000 enough, is 10,000 enough,
Yeah.
like how to understand the amount when you are reducing and how to have that conversation. And then my third one is buyers that are still looking,
Yeah,
but you need to have that like honest and blunt conversation of, you know, they're not going to, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So.
anybody else? What are you facing? What are you facing in this market?
For me, I guess understanding demand versus getting it up versus
Yeah.
maybe, Westerville or, Galloway or what, how is each pocket, so they can still hot and if you're not actually working in these different pockets, it's really hard to know. So the pricing and
Sure.
competitiveness, where exactly are we? I think that's.
Okay, it's good. It's a good question. Yeah,
I have a lot, residential lot for sale for one. And the seller continues to feel that its value is a little higher than we've turned down.
okay. Are the offers that you've gotten in the same ballpark? In terms of what they've offered?
With 230, and I have actually, I've
Yeah.
negotiated away 60 or more a couple of times.
Yeah,
This is not happening. Folks will not come up and do it. So what I've chosen to do is just keep communication lines open and pretty frequently with both
Mhm.
of the agents who have people, because I don't know quite why they all the business they both have, but they both want to go.
sure.
He's getting this when making now. So I know what happened.
Yeah,
That's just in the current.
okay.
And if I have a couple buyers, it looks like a year for sellers, so one of them selling and buying. And rather than letting them get concerned about the change,
Yeah,
I'm addressing it to begin with as far as well, anything that's down there talk thoroughly
Yeah.
about where the market is now. How we
Yeah.
can make it sell and what we can-
yeah. Okay, we're gonna cover all of that. Let me speak to land very specifically before we move on to your question, which is more general. Land always takes longer to sell. However, if you've gotten offers on it, that's the market telling you what that land is worth. And again, you can sit around till Jesus comes back, but if you're getting, unless you get a buyer, and there is a conversation you have with sellers, which is, what is more important to you, time or money? And we'll talk about that. Because eventually his land will be worked at if he's willing to wait till 2036. So maybe he is, maybe he's willing to wait there. And then it becomes a business decision on your end. Am I willing to keep going, through this? So we'll have that conversation. The question I asked was, what are you seeing out there? What are your challenges with this market shifting that you'd like to see discussed today?
Just trying to price things
Yes,
correctly from both sides.
Yeah.
Even from a buyer side,
absolutely.
something's listed at 450, you're looking at it, you're like, there's no way that's worth 450.
Right,
But 6 weeks ago,
it was,
something sold down the
Yeah.
street for 475.
right,
You know what I mean? So
Really
it's just, it can move so quick.
yeah.
It's just kind of stuck sometimes.
Anybody else? I just want to make sure we touch on everything that's questioned. Honey, I say, honey, this is my son.
Good to know.
Yeah, yeah.
Kathy,
So those are all excellent points, and that's exactly what we're gonna cover today. Let me first start by saying, it is a jungle out there. I mean, I am coming road weary from experiencing it for 6 months, but by no means with all the answers. I'm still learning as we go through this. The advantage I have is that from a listing perspective, my team lists about 5 homes a week. So we are, if you remember the old adage of the Indian with their ear to the ground and kind of hearing what's coming down the road, we do have a broader perspective to know, is this just Gahanna, or is this going on in Worthington, and what is the price point? So we're going to discuss. So I would say surely by volume, we have a better idea than some of you have the opportunity to, because we're on the listing end of quite a few houses. But my buyer's agents are going through the same thing. Every Tuesday morning, we scratch our head and say, okay, what do we do? What do we do with this market? So I want to talk about the market from 2 perspectives. One, I'm going to start from the listing perspective, and then we're going to talk about buyers, and I'm going to teach you how to do a request to remedy, which has anybody else never done a request to remedy? It's like this. Some of you don't even know that's a document that we have that we can get, because it has been so long since you've had the opportunity to do that. So let's start by talking about listings and setting expectations. That's the biggest thing you need to do when you're working with homeowners, is you need to be able to sit down with them and say, we are not in the market we were 6 months ago. So whatever your neighbor got in January, you are not going to get that. And the most important thing here to know, and one thing's very helpful, is the media is helping us. There is nobody I go sit down with at their dining table and they say, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? They all know. They all are hearing it every day that they missed that window. So that becomes your ally. Is they're going to tell you, yeah, I know we missed it. I know we should have done this last year. And then either the husband or wife will look at each other and be pissed off because we should have done this last year. But they will all come in with an acknowledgement, unless they've been under a rock. They will all come in with an acknowledgement that we are not selling in the market we were 6 months ago. So that actually helps you. So then they're looking at you to answer the question, what are we selling in? So the first thing you must do as a listing agent is be prepared to tell them, what does it mean to their specific home? And the one mistake I find that agents are making is that they are going to listing appointments and they're pulling up comparable sales, and they're using as their defining number what the property sold for, not what it listed for. So when we pull up the comparable sale data and it shows you all these homes that listed between 315 and 340, for example, and then they sold for 360 to 380, the first mistake that agents are making is they're looking at the 360 to 380. And that's gone. That's what you need to explain to your sellers and say, this is the market that was gone. We cannot get that anymore. But what has not changed is the number they listed at, because the number they listed at was very likely, if it was listed by a good a realtor, based on appraisal value. And let me tell you also, we are still in a seller's market. The seller's market is not gone. The wild, wild west of real estate is gone. but we still only have 3,000 homes on the market. And some of you may not know, if you've not been in business for a while, we should have 15,000. That's the normal we used to always have. We always had 13 to 15,000 active listings in the MLS. Then we hit the recession, which was 2005 to 2012. We had 30,000. Those of you remember, Ann, when we would pull up the MLS, we'd have 28 to 30,000 homes on the market. So in a market with 3,000 homes on the market, that's still very much a seller's market, but it is a seller's market for 5 days. If your client's home does not go into contract in the first 5 days, you are now into a buyer's market or a normal market at best, where we may be talking about price reductions, or we may be talking about negotiating a request to remedy. So the first thing you need to do is you need to be able to sit down to them and define their neighborhood. Define what's going on, how many homes have sold, and instead of going back a year, go back to June. Because if you go back to June, you're going to bring in only what's happened in the market shift. 3 or 4 months, you're going to be able to tell them a realistic days on market. You're going to be able to tell them a realistic idea of our home still selling above list price, that sort of thing. The other thing I do is call my other agents and I say, hey, I'm getting ready to list a home in this price range. How many showings did you have? Let me give you a general rule of thumb, what we're seeing on the listing end. Anything under 350,000 is still getting multiple offers. Is anyone else finding that? If you're listing homes out there, you got 350 or below, you're still getting 15 to 20 showings on your home, and you're still getting multiple offers. You start hitting 400 and above, and you're 1996. I mean, it is maybe 4 or 5 showings the first weekend. If you don't get an offer, then we are looking at price reductions. I have a home on the market right now in Dublin. Dublin schools always used to be money in the bank. I got the listing because I listed and sold their next door neighbor's home. So in January of this year, I listed this home on Valley Mead. It actually was not as nice as the home I had listed down. We listed for $415. We got $440. We had 40 showings in the first weekend. We got 11 offers. They closed at $440. Okay, neighbor calls me. You sold our neighbor's home and we just went in contract on an Epcon. It's going to be done in December or January. We want to sell, but we don't want to move twice. So we don't want to list yet. We want to hold off until our home's being done. So around July, I called them and I said, guys, just giving you a heads up. The market is shifting. I cannot guarantee a home, an offer in the first weekend. We're going to be a little more conservative. I met with them again. They said, well, but we've got so much stuff to get rid of, and we're going to aim for September. So move on to September. Listed their home, I think in the middle of September. We listed it $415, just like their neighbor. Even though it was nicer, I said to them, but the market is slowed. We're going to be conservative, put it at $415. Put it on the market. We got 5 showings and 1 person through an open house. This is in Dublin schools. Okay, so no offers on the home. They call me, the next weekend. We hold another week or so. We drop the price to within 10 days. We drop the price to $405. They get a little bit more activity. And then of course their bottom line is 400. We're not going a dime below 400. But again, we talk about the market dictates that. And if we don't get an offer in this week, we're going to drop it again. We'll be going under 400. So again, that is the drastic nature of this market. Now, so rather than look at where is it still hot geographically, if you're representing buyers and you're wondering, okay, I wonder how many showings this home is getting because you don't know, I can tell you that if it's 350 or below, they're still getting a boatload of showings. And no matter where it is. So rather than look geographically, think price wise. Pricing 350 below, you need to tell your buyer we're still likely competing for that house. 350 and up becomes iffy. 400 and up, your buyer it's a good house will still sell, but we're not getting 15 offers on houses, we're getting 2 or 3. So you're still in a competitive market, but we're not getting that. So again, you need to be able to sit down with your homeowner in your listing presentation and say, this is what I've done. I checked out the market from June until now, because that's really the bellwether of where we're going. I've called some realtors. I found out that on average in this price range, you can expect maybe 3 or 4 showings the first weekend. And the average days on market is now 11. It was 3 6 months ago. So you're already setting them up that they're not going to have the quick sale that perhaps their neighbor had in January. You no longer guarantee or expect an offer over the weekend. For years, and I mean years, I've listed homes on Wednesday, and while I'm sitting with them, I schedule an appointment on Monday to meet with them with offers. And I just told them that we're going to meet because you're going to get offers, and I'm going to meet with you on Monday. I now tell them we can't guarantee that. We need to look very hopefully in the first month, maybe 5 weeks, but there might be a price reduction in there. That's the effect of this market. And again, going back to point number 1, you're not the bad guy. They know all they're hearing is interest rates going up, buyers leaving the market, homes aren't selling, that sort of thing. And then, as I said, you're going to call around and get your colleagues' help so that when you're sitting with them, you can advise them of what other homes very recently in the price range have gotten. So what is true? What is true is that comparable sales still matter, but it's where they listed, not where they ultimately sold. The listing price is still probably very accurate. That's where that home is likely to sell. And that's the reason I argue with people telling me that house values have gone down. No, the house values are pretty much the same, is we don't have the craziness of buyers offering way over list price, throwing money at it and paying appraisal gap. Because in reality, that was not the house value. That's just what a buyer was willing to pay. So the house is still worth what it was 3 months ago or even 6 months ago. We just can no longer guarantee that the buyer is going to throw money at it like they did. The other thing is we do have geographic hotspots. You have anything around Johnstown right now is a geographic hotspot. You have a section over on Blacklick from Wagoner Road, Blacklick, both in Gahanna and Licking Heights schools. There is a huge Nepalese community that wants to live in that community. Those homes sell by word of mouth. Has anybody sold in there? I mean, you almost can't compete if you're a buyer, because no matter what your buyer will offer, someone's uncle is going to offer more because they want their niece or nephew to move where the community moves there. So again, I have one buyer right now looking in that area. They are not Nepalese, and I told them we have no shot because I can't compete with the rich uncle. You can't compete with the rich uncle who says, I'll pay the extra money to bring you into the community because mom and dad and cousins and everyone live there. So again, you just have, other than that, and that community spills a little bit over into Reynoldsburg, Broad, that east area there. Other than that, there is no geographic area that is hotter than others. It is more price points are hotter than others. Low end is still hot, makes sense. There's more buyers on the low end than the high end. Your high end, you're going to be prepared for, you're going to have to work for your money. As a listing agent, we have to learn once again how to work for our money because it is not as easy as going from putting it on the market to scheduling a time to see that change. So the next thing you're going to do when you're listening is you really need to listen to feedback. Now I'm going to speak to you briefly as a buyer's agent. Please give feedback. Okay, I don't care if you just assume your feedback doesn't matter because they're getting 17 offers. We're not getting 17 offers anymore. Your feedback is essential to me doing my job. And I promise you, if you give me feedback, I'll give you feedback when you list a home. Feedback is essential. You have to know what the buyer is thinking when you're not getting offers. And so one of the things that I do is I wait for the feedback. And if I don't hear from you, I'm going to call you because it matters to me why your buyer is walking away from this property. when you do give feedback, please be specific. And what I'm gonna ask you to do is what every listing agent wishes you would do, and that is reference the price, okay? You might think that your buyer thinks the bedrooms are too small, and that's the reason they're walking away. But the truth is, your buyer is saying, for this price, I want bigger bedrooms. Okay, and so it is always helpful to us as listing agent. Whatever it does, it smell like cat pee? Well, yes, that's the reason, but your buyer is saying, I'm not gonna pay this and buy a house that smells like cat pee. Because the truth is, any house you show, if I put a price tag on it of $100, you would overcome cat pee in small bedrooms because the price overcame that objection. So every feedback you make has some relevance to the price of the home. It's very helpful to me in communicating to my clients that price matters, that we are not priced well for this or for this reason. My clients aren't, but give feedback, make it specific. It does not help me when you see feedback and the feedback is buyer is not interested. Okay, got it. But why? Why is your buyer not interested? That's what's helpful to me. And then the other thing, the only way I can say is to feel the interest of the home. When you have listed enough homes, you will begin to, if I put this home on the market on Friday morning, I know by noon on Saturday. I can feel, are we getting showings? Are we getting phone calls? Are we getting text and interest? Is there a buzz about this house? If there's not, I'm already preparing for a phone call on Sunday to lower the price. Because in this market, we should have that. Even if we're only getting 5 or 6 showings, those showings should be resulting when it's a new listing. I should be hearing, I have a buyer who has interest. Let me know if you have offers. I'm bringing the wife back on Sunday. There's a lot of interest. If I'm not hearing that, then I've got a problem. I've got a problem, and I can tell that within 48 hours. And by the way, I prepared my homeowner for that at the listing. I tell them we're not going to wait 2 weeks. You know, we may wait 2 days, but then you're going to hear from me because I want us to adjust to this market very quickly if you don't have an offer on your home.
Kathy, is that for all price points or?
All of them, yeah.
Okay.
Now, that's a very good point. When you get into the 500 and 600 price range, I still should be getting showings. I mean, in many communities anymore, 500 is the average price point. When you're talking Dublin and Upper Arlington and even sections of Olentangy schools, New Albany, 500 is someone's first home, you know. So again, I should still be getting showings. I should still be getting feedback. If I get no showings, I have a tolerance for about 10 days with no showings and then I'm out. I say, no, what we've got to do is adjust, to the buyers. And here is a very important conversation you need to learn to have with your homeowners. Remember, I talked about time or money. So I've had this conversation 3 times this week with my homeowners and gotten price reductions 3 times for them. What I've said to them is, your home is worth what we have it listed right now, because that's what you'll always hear. Well, nobody's mentioned price in the feedback. Well, the comparable sales you said showed that it was worth $425 or whatever the number is. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, your home is worth $425. So we've got a choice right now. I ran numbers again. I looked at sales. Your home is absolutely worth $425. But the problem we have right now is we have no $425 buyers. So we have a choice. We can wait for $425 buyers to trickle into the market one at a time, one this week, one in 2 weeks, one in another 3 weeks. And we'll just keep it at $425 because as those buyers come into the market, your home's going to show well for $425. And they're going to run comparable sales and it's still worth $425. But by that time, we're now 17, 20, 30, 40 days on the market. And now that buyer's not going to offer that, but you'll still get probably a good solid offer because the comparable sales support $425. So if time is more important to you, if money is more important to you than time, let's just keep it at $425 and let those buyers trickle into the market. What we lost is that market where we automatically got 20 $425 buyers and someone bought it. We no longer have those buyers in the market. But if they say to you, well, my new build's gonna be done in the middle of December, I don't have time to do that. Then you have to compromise on money, which means then you're saying, okay, even though the comparable sales say that it's worth $425, we're out of buyers. All the 425 buyers have seen your home. And I've called every realtor around and they're all saying the same thing. They're not getting any showings. That means you're not missing the showings. Those buyers don't exist. They're gone, they're gone out of the market. So where do we find new buyers? We shift down to a lower price point. Because right now there's a buyer out there looking in Dublin schools who told their realtor that they can't go over 400 and your home doesn't exist to them because you're up here at 425. But if I shift it down, well, there's a whole new group of eyes now looking at your house. And now, well, gosh, I didn't want to go over 400, but now that one's at 410, that's worth going to see. So usually what happens when you shift a price down is that there's a quick uptick in showings. Because there's a whole group of buyers who didn't know that home existed until the price range came down into their computer range. I have a listing right now on a condo in Shagbark here in Gahanna. It's really well priced. In fact, I put it 10,000 below what one sold for in March, and mine is much nicer. We dried up showings, and buyers were kind of lackadaisical about it. And so I had the conversation. We moved it down to 315. It has 4 showings today on it. Now, where were those buyers 2 weeks ago? They didn't know it existed because we had it too high. They weren't going to go that high. So again, that's the argument to lower the price. Yes.
Question, so when you're in the 400s, do you usually go down by 10 grand or?
Very good question. When you are in the 350 and below range, 10 grand is probably the minimum. I have homeowners that say, well, let's drop it 5. And I said, don't waste our time. Because the buyer who just saw it yesterday and it's been on the market 2 weeks knows that they could get 5,000 off. So 5,000, the purpose of the price reduction is 2 things: turn the head and lower and new eyes. The turn the head is the buyers who've already seen it, who had an objection and they go, whoa, they lowered the price, turning their head. They now, one of our showings coming back to the condo today is someone who already saw it when it was 325 and now they're coming back at 315. They went away for 3 weeks, but it turned their head. They go, their realtor called them and said, hey, you know that condo you really like? It's come down 10,000 in price. They're coming back today. So that's the turn the head. The other 3 are saying, wow, I didn't know this condo existed. It's in my price point. Now we're going to come see it. So how do you turn the head and how do you get new eyes? Minimum 10,000 price point. Other than that, you're just wasting your time. And then you get over 400 and it needs to be 15,000 or more coming off that price point. You get up to the 500 and 600, it needs to be 20,000 or more. It needs to be enough that the buyer was not seeing it, or enough that whatever the objection is, whoever saw it already says, that's worth taking a second look. Did you have something?
She has a question.
Who's?
Oh. What about as far as like a strategy? I've seen a lot of people take them temporarily off the market, right? Like you're still seeing that continuous days on market. So is there a strategy there to just say, I'm going to take it off and see what new set of buyers come in the spring to, if you listed at 425, to get the people to bid over 425, or is it worth still?
There's no good reason to take it off the market, in my opinion, for any length of time except holidays. That's the only, what is a viable way. First of all, did we answer the question about price, the chunk of money that has to come off? Yeah, and by the way, that is covered in the listing presentation. When you talk about potential price reduction, depending on the price of their home, I'm already telling them that, and based on the price of your home, when I come to you to consider a price reduction, it's not going to be 10 or 15, it's going to be 20 to 25. So when you call them 2 weeks later, they're already quoting 20 to 25 lower because you told them that at the listing presentation. You've already prepared them for that. In answer to Carol's question, I've had people take their homes off. In fact, this condo that we just lowered the price on their home, they got COVID. So we took their home off the market for 10 days, and wouldn't you know it, that's when someone else listed a condo just like theirs that went into contract like that, and it wasn't nearly as nice as ours. And I said to them, it just happened to be that window when yours was off the market. So there's no, in my opinion, there's no reason from a strategic marketing point to take the home off the market. It's just, to try to jumpstart showings. But the time I do have people do it is right now. I have people who actually, I'm recommending people not list their homes right now. I've had 2 or 3 people call that I've said, look, don't waste your time. Let's wait, call me in February. Let's get going then. But I have some people who have an urgent need to sell their home. They put it on the market. Let me give you an example of that. Last year, I put a home on the market in Clintonville. They had already bought a home. They said to me, Kathy, we really don't want to carry the home over the winter, have a home in Lewis Center and a home in Clintonville. And so they said, can we put it on the market? I put it on the market, and I'm guessing now on numbers, but I think we listed it 400. And this is a hot market. This is the fall of 2021. We got probably 10 or 11 showings, no offers on it, started getting stagnant. Around Thanksgiving, I said to them, what, I'm going to recommend, we had one lowball offer on it. I said, I'm going to recommend, I know you don't want to hold it. Let's pull it off, put it on the market in February. We pulled it off, put it on the market in February. We had 30 showings and 6 offers, and it went out at like 25 over list price. And that was between September and February. Now, the difference being, one, you have more buyers in the spring. So that was there. And the clock was ticking on those interest rates. So everybody was rushing out to grab interest rates. So that it was already going that they were going to go up. Yeah.
On that note, since we're kind of that time window now of October, November.
Yeah.
Do you foresee us, I guess looking into the crystal ball, do you foresee us having a bounce up in the market in February, March, April?
Yeah,
Typically?
I'm very bullish on the market, and it all comes down to the number of houses we have on the market. People say that this is another 2008 or 9 or 10. No, it's not. I was there, 2008, 9 and 10, we had 33,000 homes on the market. So yes, that was ugly. And 5% interest rates, and we still had too many homes on the market. So no, what I perceive is going to happen is that, first of all, I think these interest rates are going to normalize, and I don't mean normalize in terms of the Federal Reserve. I'm talking in people's minds that Christian, my son right here, he has never in his adult lifetime known an interest rate over 5%. So to him, 7% is astronomical. That's a really high rate. Whereas Ann, what's the highest rate you've known in your lifetime? 18. Ann says 7 looks pretty good to me, So same thing here, when I got in the business in 1996, I thought I was a really great realtor because it was easy money. Well, in fact, I found out 5 years later that I got in the month and the year interest rates went below 8% for the first time in 10 years. So all of a sudden that caused the market to explode. So when I say normalize, I think that's going to become a normal market. People are not going to say, I think they're going to stop thinking, gosh, it's so high because it's over 3.5%. And they're going to say, well, what did you hear? The Federal Reserve dropped it 0.25% today. It's now only 7.25%. Let's go out and buy a home. And then the other thing on our side, people always want houses. We're not selling Pampered Chef. We're not selling Avon. We are selling a product that you do not have to talk people into buying. Everybody wants a house. So I still think we're going to come into the market with enough buyers, more than enough buyers. We're going to have a shortage of homes on the market, and we are still going to have a competitive market. We're not going to have a Wild West market. We're going to have a competitive market, and the agents who do well are going to be the ones who adjusted to that market, both on the listing end as well as in preparing their buyers for it. But yeah, Central Ohio is primed and ready for a robust economy with 50,000 people moving into our community in the next 2 years, and housing is going to still be very high demand. You're still going to be in very high demand for your services, and the best of you are going to do very well because you will have educated your homeowners to adjust, and you will have learned to negotiate for your buyers. The other thing you do have to prepare for listings is we have to feel the interest on the home, pursue a price reduction, and do it fearlessly. Again, if you have prepared your homeowner at the listing, You are the expert, okay? And the day you forget you're the expert and they start calling the shots, you're on the wrong end of the leash. Okay, so at the beginning, you have to prepare your homeowners. This is the way we do it. This is the way the market works. If your home has 10 showings with no offers, I'm going to be coming to you for a price reduction. And in your price point, we're looking at probably $20,000 because your home should still sell in 10 showings. Now, if we get that 10 showings on a weekend, I'll be back to you on Monday morning. If it takes 2 weeks to get that 10 showings, then I'll be back to you as soon as we have consistent feedback in 10 showings, but you're going to pursue that price reduction. Once you get the price reduction, you go back, you email all the realtors who've shown the home, tell them you've got a price reduction, and then the MLS begins to do its work and begins to notify buyers that you've done the price reduction. Weekly check-ins. You know, it used to be the dreaded thing when you had listings, you said check in with the homeowners for weeks at a time, because it used to take 4 months to sell a house. Well, one thing COVID's done, at least for me, it's made me very adept at Zoom, and everybody very adept at Zoom. So one of the things I start putting on my schedule is regular Zoom meetings with my clients. It's 10 minutes in the evening, but there's something about them seeing your face and then you seeing theirs, and you have a talk and you calm them down and you hear strategy and you talk about what their concerns are, and then you deal with it. That's your job. That's what realtors do. So again, those regular check-ins. And then once again, when you're sitting down with these homeowners, you need to re-educate them on the concessions they may have to make that they have not had to make for years now. You need to make sure they understand what a pre-approved buyer is, what the various kinds of financing, the work of a home inspection and the appraisal. What happens when the home doesn't appraise? Well, their neighbor got the buyer to pitch in 50 grand. Well, that's not going to happen now. So educating them as to what may happen down the road if their home doesn't appraise. And then also the days of 60 days free of charge living in your home. Well, that's what their neighbor got. They may not get that. So beginning at the front end to educate them on that. Any of you that list homes have any other things that you make sure you talk about or you dealt with your homeowners? Yeah.
Conditions.
What's that?
Condition of the property.
Yes, very true.
Back in the day, you can sell whatever and the seller.
You may have dog poop in the living room. It didn't make a difference. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it matters now. You know, it's a very good point. And I forgot to bring that up. I had a walkthrough with a client and she said, well, I remember when you were here before and you said this didn't matter and that didn't matter. And I said, well, that was 2019. It matters. Sorry. Sorry, but today it matters. Yeah.
So Kathy, I have a question as on like, this, is, I think relevant to either on the buy side or the sell side. It's probably been since July 2020 since I got somebody on either side in contract with either an FHA loan, seller paying closing costs, and no appraisal gap. So I'm just curious, like today in the market, say below 350, our FHA, and I know like it was still a hard gig then, but you know, it was still doable. So our FHA, no appraisal gaps, you know, sellers paying closing costs as long as you build that into the price.
Yep.
And then this 2-1 buy down, that's all the, you know, blowing up our emails is, yeah, so
Yep.
kind of.
So right here, let's move on to buyers, setting expectations with buyers. And by the way, I've invited Rob from Keller Mortgage. He's going to stop in here because I asked him to give you some ideas of things you could suggest to your buyers to give them more buying power in there. Yeah, I had a realtor call me the other day or text me and ask me what did it mean to ask the seller to pay closing costs? It's like a different language. We've not done it. So first of all, when you set your buyer's expectations, you always have to look and say, how long's that home been on the market? Because that's what I'm telling you. If that home's been on the market for a day to 5 days, you're still in 2020, as far as you know. I mean, you still have to act like you're in 2020 because we don't know. We are still getting multiple offers on houses. While we're sitting here, I just got a text from an agent who's making an offer on a property that is the third offer on that property. So again, we are still in a multiple offer market. What you have to, the way we, when they, I mean, my team, what we've learned to do with our buyers is to say, Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is day 2 on the market. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you want this home? 0 to 3 means it's a great home. We could live here, but I'm not going to compete for it. 4 to 7 means, gosh, I really like this. I'd be disappointed and I will do a little bit. I'll go over list price for it. And if it's up here at 9 or 10, it means I'll never find another home like this. Tell me what I have to do to get it. Because in that spectrum, in the first few days on the market, should dictate the strength of your offer. There's no crystal ball here. A lot of it just depends on how much does your buyer want this home. And I always say, when they tell me what they want, and especially if they're the 0 to 3 end, I say to them, so if we look this up a month from now and it's sold for 10,000 more than what you're asking, you would be okay because you're not going to offer any more. And if they say yes, then you have set the path for them. And then you say, okay, we call them 2 days later and say, okay, you didn't get it, and they're okay. On the other hand, if they're at the 10 end, then you've got to treat this like it was a year ago. They've got to have appraisal gap. They've got to go in well over list price. They've got to waive home inspection, all of those things, because we are still in those first few days. Now, one of the things I've begun telling my buyers is, do you still want to play that game? And if they say, no, I don't want the pressure of having to do that, then I've set their searches for anything 7 days on the market or later. So they're not even seeing the homes for the first week. Every home that comes to them has already been on the market 7 days, and it's a buyer's game at that point. So that's a conversation you need to have with your buyers, is where are you on that scale? Are you still a buyer who wants to jump in, or have you heard all your friends talking and now you think that's foolish and you're not willing to do it? So it really comes down to the market has not shifted in that first 3 to 5 days. You still have to treat it as if we are in a year market. Now, a year from now, it might be gone completely. But right now, we're still getting multiple offers. It is still a seller's market. The other thing to talk to your buyer about, and we'll talk more when Rob gets in here, is that whole idea of using money to buy the interest rate down or to provide closing costs. We haven't seen that for years. And here, what the reason we haven't seen it is because it is a price concession. If you have a $300,000 home and I offer you $300,000, but my buyer needs $3,000 in closing costs, that is not a list price offer. That's a $297 offer. And by the way, I had a lot of agents say, well, what do you mean? I made a list price offer. Well, no, you didn't. You offered list price, but then took money back in closing costs. So to your point, yes, you make it. Now, if the house is 300 and your buyer needs 3,000 in closing costs, and you offer me 303, then yes, that's a list price offer. So what I tell sellers, let's go back to the selling end, because I've had old school sellers say, well, I'm not paying anyone's closing costs. I put 20% down on my first house. I'm not going to pay any closing costs. And what I try to tell them is, you are not paying anyone's closing costs. The buyer's choosing to finance it into their loan. As long as you get your bottom line, do you care if they pay more for the house to finance their closing cost into the loan? And if they, oh, no, I don't care as long as I get X, well, there you go. You take the money and you add it. I got an offer this week that asked for $15,000 in closing costs, okay? So now they raised the price of my home by $10,000 and asked for $15,000 in closing costs. So they were asking for $5,000 off the list price. Explain that to my seller. My seller got it. My seller said, well, we're only willing to negotiate $2,000 off the price. So we raised the buyer's offer by $3,000. So as long as it appraises, everybody's happy. Yes.
Sorry, Kathy, but I got a lender that probably max like around 3,000 to 3,500 at closing costs.
That's a question for your lender. In this case, the lender is the one who set that number. And
Most
it
of
was
the time
all,
it's 6%.
huh?
Most of the time it's 6% of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's either 6%, I think on an FHA it's 6%. It's a lot of money. I mean, they can ask a lot of money. And here's what first of all, FHA is an expensive loan. I mean, just the funding fee on an FHA loan for a $300,000 house is about $10,000. So there's gonna be some heavy fees associated to VA and FHA loans. But in addition, what we're seeing buyers start to do now is work with their lender and try to buy that rate down a little bit. So again, for a buyer, look at that option. We haven't looked at it in a long time, so look at that option. Same thing, you want to do weekly check-ins with your buyer. You know, buyers are really nervous now about interest rates going up while they are locked in, so check in with them. Do you want to look in different areas? Do you want to, spread your interest? Can I change your search at all to bring in more houses? Because again, we still have a shortage of houses. And then you're going to re-educate on the concessions they have options of, the process of using those concessions and whatever options they have on the home. You want to make sure you understand it as an agent, and then you also want to make sure they understand it.
Kathy, I have a question.
Yes.
In the past, I know a lot of people that were thrown on cash. That's why they were asking for closing costs. So you're saying now to buy the rate down, ask for a couple grand or?
Whatever they need it for. I've had lenders call me and say, look, this buyer is good. If we can get X amount of dollars from the seller, it's going to buy their rate down so that they qualify. It's just however they want to use the money and however the lender wants to use the money.
I just had an agent call me and they were making an offer and she said, they're gonna ask for closing costs. I'm like, the third day got 20%. And I said,
Yeah.
well, if they're competing, they should do that, but why are they asking for closing costs? Just because? Because I said, typically, you should have a reason for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're short on cash or something. But it was
Well-
no reason, so she probably wouldn't win the offer.
Well, again, if you're, now remember, the seller is going to look at two things. They're going to look at their net.
Right?
So if the net is the same, they don't care if the buyer wants to finance the money.
$3 grand.
But what I tell buyers is it's net and perception. Meaning if now the seller perceives you as a weaker buyer because you asked for closing costs, then that is an issue too. But then that becomes your job to pick up the phone, call the agent and say, look, I had an agent call me that says, look, I want you to know my buyer has actually 30% down. They love your client's home, but now they've seen some work it needs that, maybe some of the other homes didn't. They really want to save their cash for that work. So we're going to ask for closing costs. Makes perfect sense to me. They're financing that cost into their loan, doesn't hurt the seller in exchange for having the cash in their pocket to do repairs on the house. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a weaker buyer, but that's your job as an agent to call the listing agent and let them know that. Says that's the reason.
Still in this market, build it in.
Yeah, build it into the price. Now, here's the other thing I do, both on the buyer and the listing end. If my buyer needs a considerable amount in closing costs, I put a line in there that says commission will not be paid on the closing costs. Like on that 15,000 the buyer asked for, we countered and said that the realtors commissions are based on the sale price of the home, not the closing costs. Because your seller should not have to pay commission on money. Now, if it's 2,000 or 3,000, it's not enough money to care about. But if you get a loan that starts getting into 5, 7, 10,000 in closing costs, I say it both on the listing end and the buying end. Commission shouldn't have to be paid on that. So the things you're going to reacquaint yourself with are the buyer's request to remedy, the seller's remedy period. Many of you have not even had to deal with that yet. Appraisal terms and the buyer's pre-close walkthrough. So talking about, this is my definition. This is not a legal definition, but this is the definition I've always used when a buyer looking at me saying, can I ask for this? What I tell them is the purpose of the home inspection is to identify non-working, end of useful life and safety hazards that were not visible or identifiable at the time of the buyer's viewing of the home. The repair issue should be significant enough that had your buyer known about the issues prior to making an offer, your buyer would not have made an offer or they would not have offered the price they did. That's what a home inspection is for. Here's what I've experienced as a listing agent. I've had the entire home inspection sent to me, saying the buyer wants everything fixed. I've had requests for torn screens, shredded carpet, tilting deck, And this is in any market, I'm just saying, one said that they bolts on a toilet. One had a toilet paper holder that was loose, they wanted that tightened. Also, okay, that's not the, and you want to piss a listing agent off, send that over. You want to see your offer go to the bottom of the pile, send that offer. And the reason is because what it tells me is, and I've had buyer's agents say to me, well, I gotta do what the buyer tells me to do. No, you don't. You are there, you are the expert. You should be educating them. You send me a request like that, it tells me you didn't do your job. Okay, because had you done your job, the only thing on the list would be the things that were not visible or identifiable at the time they made the offer. Now, I have had agents call me apologizing before they even send it over, essentially saying, I know this request is nuts, but bear with me, and I'm working through trying to educate these buyers, and I get that, you're going to have that. But a vast majority of our colleagues don't even try. They just say, well, this is what the buyer wants. This is what I'm going to do. So first of all, on a request or remedy, no landlord lists. That's the young buyer who expects the seller to be their last landlord and get absolutely everything fixed before they move into a home. Your role as the buyer's agent should be to educate them to be homeowners. You should be able to help them discern between routine maintenance things that they're going to take care of and things that are truly issues. Be specific when you make requests. Be prepared to concede. Be prepared to tell your buyer, look, we're going to ask for this, but what are the things that are most important to you? And also offer a cash concession instead of repairs. There's a lot of liability that goes into your homeowner doing the repairs. And I know especially first-time home buyers love all those repairs to be done. But really, it's in your client's best interest to choose their own repair person, have it done by someone they're familiar with, and they can go back to. So again, know that cash concession instead of repairs. In case you don't know, your buyer cannot receive cash across the table. The only way they can receive cash is in the form of a price reduction or money towards their closing costs. So you cannot have them, older homeowners especially will say, well, can't we just give them a decorating allowance? Or can't we just, give them a check? You can't do that anymore. Now, let's say there needs to be a furnace repair. Your homeowner can cut a check to Atlas Butler or whoever to do the repair. The lender doesn't care. But the lender wants to know that whatever concessions made for repairs is going to a house and not to Aruba or Disneyland. So again, you have to be prepared to work with your buyer so they understand these things. The dues on a buyer's request to remedy, be specific. I use as an example, this is what I get very often, seller to fix the furnace. Okay, that doesn't tell me anything. We don't know what's wrong with the furnace. Seller to have a licensed HVAC contractor repair the defective heating element as identified on page 12 of the inspection report attached. Paid repair receipt to be provided to the buyer's agent upon completion of work. That tells me what needs to be done, where I can see it in the inspection report, and what I need to provide the buyer for proof that it is done. I've had request a remedy where they say fix the furnace. I've had request a remedy that say seller to fix plumbing in the bath. Very, very general. Now, let's talk about that. Seller to fix plumbing in the bath. You didn't ask me who to do it, who has to do it. You didn't say it had to be done professionally. You didn't say I had to prove that it was done, and you didn't identify what needed to be done. So again, you're leaving a big hole there. I always use the rule of what's called a reasonable buyer. And what I mean by that is if it's an issue that if I brought 10 buyers into this house, 9 of them are going to consider it's an issue, that's a reasonable buyer. And I tell my homeowners that when they say, well, that's never bothered us, that the chimney is falling away from the house. I say to them, but you know what? If I brought 10 buyers here, that's a reasonable request. 9 buyers would consider that an issue. So as a buyer's agent, you should also educate your buyer that the things we're going to ask for are the things that a reasonable buyer is going to have interest in. And then the last thing I say is be aware of seasonal limits. I've had people ask for new asphalt to be put down in December. I've had people ask for exterior painting in February. Okay, it's not gonna happen, so don't put it in writing, just before you get there, say, you know what? I know that the driveway has, pitfalls and all this, that can't be done until May. So I'll tell you what, why don't we just find out the cost for that and let's ask for a concession for you to be able to do it. Or to pay the contractor at closing or something like that. But again, this is a real big deal with swimming pools. People want the swimming pool inspected. I've owned a pool, okay? You cannot inspect a swimming pool in February, all right? Yeah.
Also, the radon was getting ridiculous because when buyers were asking sellers, it was a nightmare. I recall sometimes. So
Yeah.
I think radon have a prepaid.
Yeah, and have it done after closing.
Have
Yeah.
the buyer do it legally then because
Yeah,
I remember just people that sellers in mine that wanted to do it. You don't want to do this.
yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. Well, and two, I've had buyers say to me, well, what if they don't reduce the radon? What if I wait till after closing and it doesn't reduce radon down to zero? Huh?
It's all included in.
Yeah, it's all like the radon, that's the radon company's problem, though, and frankly, I've never seen it not be reduced. I mean, it just is, it's not rocket science. So again, be aware of seasonal limits when your buyer has concerns and be prepared to turn those repair requests into dollar figures rather than asking the seller to do it. Some of the don'ts. Don't ask the seller for additional inspections. Oh my gosh, this is my pet peeve. And if you do not want Shirley on you in my office when this happens, we see these all the time. Seller to have a structural engineer come out and ensure the basement wall is. Seller to have an HVAC contractor come out and ensure that it's in good shape. Those are all inspections. That's your job. That's not the seller's job. So instead, if you need more time, ask us for more time, but don't ask my seller to do your buyer's inspections on the home. Seller to have the fireplace inspected and found, in good working order. No, we're not doing that. That's your job. You want a fireplace inspection? Have it. We'll give you the time to do it. So again, when you're working with your buyers, make sure you know what they want on there. And if they're doing the full house home inspection, do it at the front end of the time period, because that is a CYA clause for home inspectors. Every home inspector puts in, you should have a qualified structural engineer look at this. You should have a fireplace person look at this. So leave time, if the home inspector asks for that you can have your own inspector come in and do that, because a good listing agent is not going to do that. They're going to say, no, that's not my seller's job. That's your job to do those. Now, in our contracts, we have a home inspection period and a remedy period, and we've gone through years of that home inspection being 5 to 7 days and 0 under remedy, because you're saying my buyer's not going to ask for any repairs. Well, okay, you're making an offer on a home that's been on the market a week or longer. You can make that 10 days, okay? 10 days, it used to always be 10 days. We always had 10 days to do home inspections. And we then, down under the remedy period, you're going to put at least 3 days. I prefer 5 days in case it's a weekend, okay? But what you're saying is we're going to make a request for repairs or concessions, and the remedy period is the time period that you're giving the seller to think about, negotiate, get estimates, do those things. So it needs to be enough time, and not just over a weekend, that if you ask for a new roof, they have time to get roofers in to get estimates on things. So again, when you're not competing, don't rush. Give it 10 days to get your inspections done. Give the listing agent 3 to 5 days minimum to get an answer back to you. So we have that. While we're on big ticket items like windows, roof, HVAC, I've had requests to remedy where the buyer says the roof is in bad shape, we want a new roof. The furnace is at the end of its useful life, we want a new furnace. Windows are shot, we want all new windows. So I'm talking big ticket items. This is what I say to the buyer's agent, this is what I say to my seller. It is the seller's obligation to provide you a good and working fill in the blank. It is not their obligation to provide you a new one. So let's say we all agree that the roof is in bad shape and that it does need to be replaced. The compromise is that the seller pays for half and you raise the price of the house by half. That way, the buyer is getting a brand new roof for half of what it would cost them. And the seller's providing a brand new roof that they'll never enjoy. But again, for the buyer's agent who says, no, we want the full cost covered by the buyer. In my opinion, you're going past the reasonable expectation. It's not the seller's reasonable expectation to give you a new one. It's their responsibility to give you a working, good repair that has a reasonable amount of life left on it. That's just my opinion. When you ask, don't ask at the last minute, leave time for us to respond on the remedy time frame to negotiate. And this is, again, as a listing agent, my other pet peeve is when you give me a list this long and call me 24 hours later and say, what's the seller going to do? I mean, you dumped a list on us, you know, it's going to take us a reasonable amount of time to put a dollar figure on those things and then come back to you. So prepare your buyer. Tell your buyer, okay, we're going to send this list over, but you've got 15 things on it. So number one, expect 7 to be dealt with, 8 or not. And of that 7, it's going to take them some time to get some numbers. So we need to give them 3 or 4 days to get back with us. Prepare them for that. Don't ask for repairs if Uncle Bob did the inspection. Okay, I've had that before where they send over repairs and I say, where's the report? Well, her uncle did it. Okay, then go get someone who knows what they're doing, because I'm not going to say, here, give us 10,000 for repairs because her Uncle Bob says this needs to be done. That's part of the education of your buyer. I'm sure the Uncle Bob is a great guy. He's probably very skilled, but if I'm going to take that request to my sellers and ask them to concede money for it, it needs to be a qualified home inspector. Now, Uncle Bob can go along if he wants, but it is worth the $400 your buyer to invest so that they get a report back that a seller can look at and respect. All right, any questions about that? The seller's remedy period. Let me talk a little bit about how we handle repairs in Ohio. We have the buyer's home inspection period, and then we have a seller's remedy period. In many states, Florida, Georgia, Virginia, Texas, the repairs are negotiated up front at the time you're writing the offer. I'm going to give you $400,000 for the home, and in that $400,000, I have the right to ask for up to $5,000 in repairs, and I want $2,000 in closing costs. That's how the offers are written. So that the seller goes in knowing exactly what their net's going to be, what their worst case scenario is, and the buyer agrees that if there's any repairs over $5,000, that's their responsibility. They have to do it. Okay. And there's some logic to that. It's one negotiation instead of 2. In Ohio, we have a 2 negotiation period. We negotiate the price of the home, and then we go back after we've done a home inspection and renegotiate all of that again, which our colleagues in Florida, Georgia, and Texas thinks is absolutely nuts. But anyway, so that's the second negotiation is when we come back after the home inspection, and that's the negotiation we have not seen a lot of in 10 years. So, and our logic is what you ask for in repairs should be relative to what you paid for the home. If you've got a steal on the house, well, you're going to be conservative on repairs. If you pay $50,000 over list, you should get to ask whatever you want for repairs. So the second negotiation, first of all, leave ample time to get estimates. We have discussed that. And can the seller do the repairs themselves? Be reasonable. You know, I've had buyer's agents ask for a licensed plumber to put the lid back on a sump pump. Okay, no, my seller can go down and put the lid back on a sump pump. So again, as a buyer's agent, determine what really takes a licensed fill in the blank. And I've had other agents say to me, you know, I know the seller has done a lot of that remodeling himself and he's very handy. So we're fine if the seller wants to do the repairs. So again, when you're going over that list with the buyer, really determine and specifically tell me as the listing agent, do I want a licensed person to do that? And does it require a licensed person? Or if it is screwing in a light bulb or fixing things, you don't need a license to do that. We can ask the homeowner to do that. And then a lot of times what I do, I always like to, especially if I get a long list. I'll call a buyer's agent and I'll say, look, I appreciate your buyer's offer and their concerns. Tell me what's non-negotiable on this list. If they say everything's non-negotiable, then I say, okay, well, we really don't, this could be real quick because we're gonna be out, you know, of doing this. But most of the time, the buyer's agent will say, yeah, I'm really sorry. But, you know, but this is what they're really concerned about. They're concerned about the mold, or they're concerned about the structure. Good, I can work with that. I can go back to the seller and say, look, remember we talked about what's a reasonable buyer? Let's divide this, take this list down to what a reasonable buyer is going to be worried about, and let's deal with that. And then finally, to have that conversation with your sellers up front. You know, I deal with a lot of older people who sell homes. They never want to do repairs. They always want to give you money. You know, they always say, well, can we just give them money? Like, we don't want to deal with this. So again, that's a conversation to have with your buyer is we're going to ask for all these repairs, but if they offer a financial concession, let's start that conversation. What do you think is fair that you would take in finances either for the whole thing, or their buyer might say, well, I really want this repair done before we move in. I want the radon mitigated before we move in. But these things, we would take $2,000 and we'll just take care of it ourselves. So again, a lot of that can cut to the chase. And it's all about setting that expectation with their buyer that they may not get their 18-point list done, but we'll deal with the majors and what is the dollar figure they're attaching to that. Any questions there? All right, so what did we not cover and what do you have questions about? Yes.
I have a question on pricing if the home is tenant occupied.
Uh-huh.
How to, yeah, if you have any insight into how to price with, because obviously the home is to show its best light.
Yeah.
And if you can even get access to be able to get photos and to be able to,
Yeah.
you know, to have.
So you're listing a home and a tenant's living there.
Right.
Okay, well, the first conversation I have with the seller is, does the tenant know they're selling the home? Let's assume they do. The tenant knows the home is on the market. So I tell the homeowner, you know, how cooperative is the tenant? Are they really nice? Do they have 3 dogs? They don't want people in during the day? What is it? And many times what I'll try to do is to get the seller not even to list it till they're out. But I do understand that means they're paying on an empty home while it's selling. But if not, then what I try to do is negotiate curb offers to start with. Well, first of all, I do ask to get in once to get all the pictures taken of the home. And I take as many pictures as I can of the home. And then what I'll often say is, let's start with curb offers, which means that the person's going to make an offer without seeing it and then renegotiate based on having seen the property so that we're not disturbing the tenant. If that though can sometimes be hard because younger buyers especially think you have to make an offer without seeing the house and things like that. And investors don't blink. Investors will say are used to it. But if the house doesn't show well, if it doesn't smell well, if it just, then you really just, that's what the seller has to live with. You're not going to get prime pricing when the home doesn't show well. I sold a rental property this last summer on campus, and the tenants were horrible. Like nobody wanted to show it. They turned buyers away. It was a duplex, and I finally told the owner, I said, you're either going to have to buy them out, which means say, I'll give you 5,000 if you're out by the end of this month, or we're just going to have to do curb offers or wait till the lease ends because we were scaring buyers away. So tenants didn't want them there. So the first thing I'd say is the conversation has to be had up front. What are your tenants like? Do they know you're selling? What is their attitude toward bringing people in the home? Can we show at will? Are they at work all day so they don't care? Tenants are all different, you know, some won't care. If not, can we have it showings on Saturday from 10 to 2? They'll agree to be gone for 4 hours. We'll tell all realtors to come through at once. So we make it as easy as we can, but at the end of the day, if the home doesn't show well, the homeowners, you have to price it accordingly, and the homeowner is going to take a hit on that. The other thing I often do with those kinds of properties, or any kind of property where I don't think they're, if it's a property that the owner's not living in, if it's in an estate, if it's being held as a rental for any length of time, I encourage the homeowner to do a full home inspection and hand it to the buyer before it goes on the market. Because that way it's an as is means as is. You're reading this before you, before you even go in. And I've had homeowners say, well, gosh, what if that scares them away? Well, we want it to scare it away. We want only legitimate buyers in there. I want to scare the ones away who don't, who aren't ready for this. So yeah, I do recommend on any kind of distressed homes that you do a full house home inspection, put it out there and save the trouble of starting back over again with another offer.
How about appraisal for those? You wanna do appraisal before listing those?
I don't ever do appraisals before listing homes because I don't think it matters. I could send 10 appraisers out to a house and get 10 different numbers. So I just don't think that the appraisal done before a listing has any value. The buyer is not going to use it. The appraiser they get might be higher or lower. Do you do appraise homes before you?
I do sometimes when I think it's questionable and at least it's something, so I don't have to really on the phone half an hour with the buyer agent try to
Yeah,
tell me what the value should be. Well, that's his opinion.
yeah,
It's never correct, but at least something rather than nothing.
yeah. I will tell you this, when I go to show homes and someone's left an appraisal out, what that tells me is they overpriced their home. It does. First thing I think is, they're putting this here because they overpriced their home, because they priced their home according to what some appraiser said, and I really don't care what some appraiser says. Ultimately, it just doesn't matter. So, maybe I would if it was a really, really hard home to price out in the country, with a,
That's the rule.
yeah, with a planetarium or something, maybe I would, but on a normal home, I would not.
So talking back about pick the price, right? So let's use your 405 listing in Dublin as an example, right? I know the seller dictate, like, this is my bottom line, but if you have to choose a price that a seller would listen, what is the best price you would recommend?
What do you mean? I don't understand what your question is about.
Because you listed at 425, 415, right?
Yeah,
Is that your price or the seller price?
no, that would be my price.
Okay.
The only time I listed a seller's price is if it's very close to my price. Like if they're wildly more than what I think a home should be, then I'll tell them up front, I can't do this. I said, in fact, I've said to them, if you can find a realtor who can show you the numbers that says this is what this property is worth, then you need to hire them, because I can't. And so I say now, here's what I'll do with you. I will price it, where you want it, keeping in mind we're wasting good market time. If you get an offer, I owe you lunch. If not, then we all agree it goes to my number. But I've never had that conversation in 10 years. We've not had to. I've told them the best way to get this price is to price down here. And so we've not had to have it. Now when sellers say to me, as my sellers did, well, 400 is my bottom line. I know it's not. I know they need to sell the home because their new build's going to be done in December. So whatever offer they accept, if it goes below 400, that's going to be their new bottom line.
My question is because sometimes the seller thing we've got, like if we have a recommended price,
Yeah,
that price is gonna sell. I'm like, I wish I have that power, but sometimes we don't really
Yeah.
know until we put it on the market and see how.
no, I tell sellers that. That's part of my listing. I tell them, I'll say, look, I am, Kathy Chiero, I am one of the best pricing agents in the city. And it's still a good guess for me. And if any agent tells you that they get it every time, they're lying, because it's not a science. If it was just data, we could put data into a computer, but Zillow has showed us how invaluable data is, okay? So it is data coupled with knowledge of having shown thousands of houses. I see Paul back here in the back. Paul, do you still live in Highland Lakes, Paul? Okay. Paul can drive down any home in Highland Lakes and tell you the floor plan. Am I right, Paul? Pretty much. Paul can go into a house in Highland Lakes and tell you what it's going to sell for. Why? Is it because he has all the data? No, it's because of a vast many years of experience. So a lot of it is data, but then it is the sense of coming in and saying, okay, the data says that your home should sell for 500,000, but your kitchen is the size of a postage stamp. And well, an appraiser won't give you a detraction of that. A buyer absolutely will. We're now down to 450. I'll tell you the best example of that is the difference between 1 bath and 2 bath homes. Okay, a 1 bath, the difference in an appraiser on their little sheet for the difference between a 1 bath and a 2 bath home is about $10,000. For a buyer, it's closer to $20,000 to $30,000. Why? Because they can borrow in their mortgage, even today, $30,000 for about $170 a month difference. If I've got 3 kids, I'm sure as hell gonna pay an $170 extra to get a second bath. Okay, so again, what the home is worth on this, on paper, which is data, is often different when you get inside. Because the things like floor plan obsolescence, things like small kitchens, only 1 bath, tiny bedrooms, a master bedroom without a bath. I mean, that's where you turn and say, well, what do they do with the bath? Because that's the buyer's expectation, is that they're going to get those things. Those are the kind of things that make pricing a moving scale, because you have to adjust for those things. There's a Dominion floor plan out there. I don't remember the name of it, but Dominion Homes had a floor plan where the partial basement was more like a cellar. It's like an 8x6 little basement. Okay, now when I see that floor plan, unless they did a full basement, taking 10,000 off the price, because I know the basement's so small. So again, it's the reason pricing is not it is difficult, and I'm still shocked. I'm still shocked where I have lost listings because I was unwilling to put it at a certain number, and then I've seen the next realtor come along and put it there, and it might take 3 months, but they get it.
Yeah.
It's sold. So it is, it's a sliding scale, and you win some and you lose some, but you get better at it as you learn to read the numbers and the data. Anybody else have questions? Yes.
I think we've had the discussion before about citing the sellers for appraisal too.
Yeah,
Because at times they set them up front, if the appraisal comes back higher, then they look at you like you just stole that much money from them.
right.
And you've already told them that whatever it comes to appraise that, do we have any offers for that price?
Yeah.
And the answer is if we didn't, then
Right. Well, first of all, I never, unless it's forced on us, I never tell my sellers what their home appraised at. They always want to know, and I always say, you know what, that belongs to the buyer, we don't see it. All we care about is that it appraised. It appraised at least what you pay for. Yeah, but we want to know what it appraised at. You know what? I don't know. It belongs to the buyer. I got a call from the lender that it appraised. That's all I know. And I don't pursue it. Don't try to find out. Don't ask. Because you're absolutely right. If it appraised at 20,000 more than what the buyer has agreed to pay for it, then it's my fault, doing that. So I don't want to know. All I want to know is that it appraised. But what I do educate them on, and if you've listened already, just this class, what I hope to bring out of it is the importance of that first meeting with both the buyer or the seller, because that's where you set all the expectations. And I sit with them and I tell them about the appraisal, and I say, look, if I brought 10 appraisers into your home, they're going to walk out with 10 different numbers. The appraisal's worthless. All we care about is, did your home appraise for the amount the buyer said they would pay for it, or within the appraisal gap allowance of the contract? That's all we care about. That means we're going to closing at what we agreed to. And then that appraisal, that piece of paper goes in someone's house file, and it's absolutely worthless, except maybe to the buyer if they want to do a home equity loan or something. It is worthless. It means nothing to me, it means nothing to you. It's not public record. No one's going to see it again. So let's not put too much emphasis on the appraisal. Let's just, throw a cheer when we get that phone call from the lender that it appraised and we're going to close it. That's all I care about. In that, yeah.
I think the biggest thing that for agents to learn from this class is how to really have that conversation with the client, because I guarantee not everybody have that, like, I have to be super honest with client the way you have it on the slide. Like, most of us probably know the knowledge, but how many of us really just straightforward and say it out? and make, like, use that, put you as an expert and make them listen.
Yeah.
That make a huge difference.
Well, I tell you, one of the problems is that agents are so hungry for business. They concede to everything the seller or the buyer wants because they don't want to lose the business. That's part of it. Part of it is just experience. Carol and I laugh at all the time. That I tell her all the time she should get non-refundable earnest money. And what do they tell you?
No, absolutely not.
And I get non-refundable earnest money. They give me more than every freaking time. Every time they'll say 10,000 and up, you want 15,000. And I'll say, Carol, go get non-refundable earnest money. She goes, they hung up on me. They're not gonna do
I
that.
raise my commission.
They gave away my commission. So yeah, part of it is being able to educate the buyer or the seller in that direction. And part of it is just confidence in what you're doing. And a third part is absolutely, if you're new, it's harder. If you're new, then it is harder for that person to have confidence in you. And so what you have to do by your performance is earn that confidence. You know, I'll use Christian for an example, because Christian's new. He has a great mentor, but Christian's new. And he called me the other day and he said to me, Kathy, I'm making an offer on this, not Kathy, Mom. I'm making an offer on this home. And I know they're gonna turn it down. Can I just make a verbal offer? And I said, no, because that's your job to make an offer. You've got to put it in writing. Great practice for you. Put it in writing. And the other reason is because if it's in writing, they have to present it. If you just throw out a verbal, the agent's out there, they're never going to accept that. And you don't even know if it ever got to the party, you know, to do it. So I said, yes, you got to put it in writing. Great practice. You learn .loop, put it out there. And the other reason for that, and this is based on experience, is that homeowners look at a written offer entirely different than they do a verbal. A verbal goes in and out and they get annoyed or irritated. Something in writing with a pre-approval letter with a signature says, my home could be gone if I can work this out. And so again, but again, part of that is just having the experience to know that that's going to land differently. The verbal is going to land differently than putting it in writing in paper. So as you get more experience in your careers and as you start doing that, the confidence comes naturally, because just like anything else that you're good at it because you did it enough times that you have a mental history of knowing I can do this because I've done it before. Anybody else have comments?
Fake it
Questions?
to make it.
Huh?
Fake it to make
Fake
it.
it till you make it. Yeah, I know. I used to, when I was brand new, you know, usually the people I was sitting with had bought and sold more homes than I had, you know, when it's, yes, ma'am.
What are your favorite home warranties?
We use, I'll tell you what, Shirley in my office is an Excel spreadsheet person. We used ABC forever, and then they just really priced themselves out of the market for us. They got too expensive. So she did an Excel spreadsheet and we use America's Preferred Home Warranty. And I can't tell you, I wish I could tell you with some empirical evidence. I do know they're less expensive than most. I know that we have not had problems with them, but my team sells more of them than anyone in the state, I think. So they might give us better service than they do others. I don't know. But I do know that we've not had complaints. They're inexpensive and well, $535, and they have a $100 deductible, and they also kick back 100. Is that what it is? Yeah, they kick back 100.
You can do a $50 deductible.
Okay, a $50
Like
deductible.
636 or something, and I use them on my own home.
Yeah, are they good?
I
You
I
can
about
call your
for
own
years now,
contractor.
yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Oh, that's true. One is you can call your own contractor, as long as you call them first. You can call your own contractor and then they're approved to give X amount of dollars without calling America's Preferred. If it's more than that, they have to check in, but you can.
So do you
that covers.
just recommend that one off the bat, or do you usually say, here's a couple that I've used?
No, we just use it off the bat. But again, in the past several years, we've not been giving home warranties, you know?
Still, it's great. I've had.
Yeah.
Home, they're very good.
Yeah, American Home Shield is another one that's been around forever. They're the granddaddy of all of them. So they've been around. Now, they started selling to the public as well, so that, their name recognition is a little better.
Karen has a question.
Yeah, hi Karen.
She put it in the chat box.
Oh.
Can you see it?
Oh,
Hey
sorry.
Kathy.
Kathy mentioned the real estate market in parts of Reynoldsburg are still hot under 350. Any knowledge of Reynoldsburg School District, but home is somewhat outside Reynoldsburg on an acre of land, not considered rural though. Okay, so the areas of Reynoldsburg that are hot because there's subdivisions where that community lives, the Nepalese live. Karen, I don't think we would be talking about rural areas. Reynoldsburg is not hot because of the schools. There is a swath of homes along Wagoner Road that is cross broad, the Taylor Road area, where you just have a huge population of Nepalese, and they are the underground, they know every house that's coming on the market. They don't often go on the market because someone told someone it's coming on the market, but you put them out there and they're gone. They're usually cash and well over list price. So
Do you know though about the Reynoldsburg area, if it's under 350, just generally speaking?
I think, Karen, anything 350 and below is still very, very hot. And Reynoldsburg is a very hot area. It has been for years because it's still one of the most affordable places you can live. You can still
Right.
get a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, well-updated home for 300,000 in Reynoldsburg or less. And you can't do that anymore in the north suburbs. So some of our hottest areas now are areas that 10 years ago buyers avoided. They are the Reynoldsburg, the Galloway, the Obetz, the Grove City, the Whitehall. Whitehall is one of the hottest zip codes out there now because it's still affordable. You know, you can get a house, a good house in there for under city of Columbus areas, areas around gosh, I'm dating myself, Old Northland Mall area, the Carl Road and Mays Cook Road. All of those areas are very, very good. So.
Okay, thanks. That's what I was hoping because I haven't listed there in a while. I wasn't sure,
Yeah,
you know,
no,
if it could
I
change.
say anything. And by the way, land is a very big deal right now. Any homes on 3 acres, 5 acres is also a very big deal right now.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
yeah, those usually sell very well. Now, our mortguage guy didn't come. That's not you. Are you the mortgage guy? I'm sorry. I don't met you, so I didn't know that was you. Come on up real quickly. Well, here I want it. Rob is your name, right? Rob, come on up. I asked Rob to talk to you briefly about just ways you could use buyers' closing costs to incentivize your buyers and give them some help with the higher interest rates. This is Rob Norwood with Keller Mortgage.
Hi, everyone.
So,
It's okay?
yeah, you
All
weren't
right.
wearing a red shirt. I would have
Well, see,
known.
Keller-
My eyes, I couldn't see. But you were Howard Hanna.
I know. For those of you who don't know, Keller Mortgage, we're under the Keller Williams number. But our color is green, so I didn't go bigger. So a couple things I know, Kathy wanted me to talk about closing costs with you guys, kind of talk about that. But I did want to just introduce myself. But before I do that, who's been in the real estate industry for less than a year? Raising hand. Less than 5 years. Less than 10 years. Okay, good. So a little bit about me. So I've been in the mortgage industry for 20 years, believe it or not. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So this is a great day to sell and buy still. Okay, say it with me. This is a great day to sell and buy still. And I say that to say because if you've been in the industry more than 10 years, well, probably 20 years, we've seen the rates higher. So we've seen a lot, right? We've seen the mortgage prices, we've seen it all. One of the things that you're always going to come across is buyers who don't want to buy because the rates are high or the closing costs are too high, right? So our job is to educate. on a, probably a weekly basis, when I go out, I go to a friend's house. Conversation is always about buying and selling. I grew up on the east side, so I lived in all the places you just mentioned, Pickerington, Whitehall, Reynoldsburg, Groveport. So very familiar with those areas. I was in Reynoldsburg the last time I had this conversation because, you know, people, they want to sell their homes, they want to buy new homes, but the rate is high. And I'm like the flow from Progressive, where I'm not going to talk about mortgages, I'm not going to talk about real estate, but I just can't help it because they're just wrong, right? I gotta say something. So the conversation, well, the rates are too high, I'm not going to sell my house, I'm not going to buy. And I said, you know what? Okay, so rates are high. I'm not gonna, you know, let's not kid ourselves. Rates are a little higher, but as we know, what's happening in Ohio, homes are appreciating faster than ever, right? So that means with Intel coming in, values are going to continue to increase. So if you want to buy a home, now's the time to buy. Because values are just, prices are just going to keep going up. Now, there's things we can do with the rate, right? We can do a 2-1 buy down, which, you know, if the seller agrees, the seller can pay seller concessions towards the rate. Okay, so 2-1 buy down, the rate, let's say it's 7%. We lock in 7% today. So the rate for the first year is 5%, right? Rate for the second year is 6%. And so when I show you your clients that on a system we call Mortgage Coach, which breaks everything down, right? It really dumbs it down. They can see it in graph charts. They can see the savings over 15, 5, 10 years. So they can clearly see the difference in what makes sense to do, right? So it's no more guessing. I've won tons of deals, can't say how many, over other loan options because I use this tool. It's almost like a CPA where I can clearly show them and they can actually take it to their CPA and show them. Their CPA will say, hey, yeah, you're right, this is the best deal for you. Because buying a home is an investment. It's one of the best investments you can do. And so that's why, you know, in this market, I actually have a training class Monday, the 31st, which you guys should attend, especially if you've been in the business less than 5 years, that we'll go over the industry. We'll go over the state of affairs right now. We'll talk about the market. We're going to talk about best practices, overcoming objections. So between me and my boss, who's been in the business over 20 years, we have 40 years of experience. So trust me, this is something you do want to attend. We're going to also have a video so you can stream it as well. So, but we're going to talk about all this good stuff.
Real quick question. So in terms of they're representing buyers, how much money do they need to ask for in closing costs to do a buy down like that?
Okay, that's a great question. So if your buyer is putting down less than 10%, you can we can allow up to 3% seller concessions. Okay. So if your buyer is putting down 10 to 25%, 6% seller concessions are allowed, right? So in essence, it makes more sense for a seller to do that than lower their sales price. And I can show them, again, Mortgage Coach, I can clearly show you if, you know, the buyer or the seller keeps the price the same, but they're willing to kick in for the seller for the buy down, your client's still going to save money over the loan, a lot more, right? So, and we can show you that on paper. The nice thing about this Mortgage Coach is because Keller Mortgage just got it. I've been using it for years, but we have it now here. So every client that, you know, you send me, I present this presentation, I send a link, the link goes to you too. Every time they open it, I get notified. So what I'll do sometimes is say, hey, do you have any questions? You know, they're like, oh man, that's weird you called me because I was just looking at that, you know, yesterday. And I had a question, can you put in another, you know, another example or something else, another product, and I just update it, you get to see it too. So it's great. I can actually present, and so they can see the video, right? Everyone wants videos now because everyone's on Instagram and Facebook. And we're also going to have a class about that, how to market on Instagram and Facebook, because that's just the way things are now, right? Some of the best agents are marketing on Instagram and Facebook and doing it effectively. So we'll talk about that as well. The other thing, as far as closing costs, we do have a 0+. And I think some of you who've been around for a while have heard of that. It's not as lucrative right now simply because the rates are a little higher. So it's like 1/4 to 1/2 point increase in rate. Whereas, you know, when rates were a lot lower, no one really cared. But we do have that available. So if you have a client who's, you know, short on cash, so they don't have the closing costs, always send them to me, because I can, look at the finances and give them different examples of what may work and what can't work based on, the cash. So, yeah, any questions?
Any type, loan type can do the 2-1 buy down, conventional, VA, FHA.
It's, any conventional type of loan.
only conventional,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. But we do VA, USDA, we do all the standard ones, so. And we are looking to come out with more arm products, but right now arms are just not as, they're just not as favorable as they used to be as far as pricing, so. But we'll work on that right now because Keller Mortgage is really good about, we really try to keep our rates low. So, we're very competitive. Now, I have some wiggle room to also negotiate the rate to be a little lower, if need to be to win a deal. So just keep that in mind too.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Oh, no problem. Just a couple highlights if I can still.
Go.
So the lunch and learn is October 31st. Sign up online. If you can, just shoot me an email. I think business cards will be coming around. Shoot me an email. I'll get you signed up. And then, one other thing. So if you want me to be your preferred LO, just let me know. And what that does, is I can actually, if I get clients in whatever area you guys are in, I can refer them out to you as well. So, just, make sure you do that, because that could be another business you can generate. So, and then I tag you in all posts. If you have a listing, I tag you. So again, that just keeps everything going and, kind of gets your name out there. So, all right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for all the questions. Guys, take care. Nice meeting you.
Thank you for stopping in.
Please eat the candy so I can get all my office.
All right, anybody else got any other questions? Anything we didn't cover that you say, gosh, I thought we were gonna cover that? All right, yes, sorry.
So again, this is one of those I have not in a few years, heard mentioned that as far as groups go, that might be, I thought if there was a big ticket item, say in HVAC, that maybe was, I don't know, out of season or something, that the buyer could have the seller put a certain amount of money in an escrow with perhaps the title company for that then the title company would write a check to the licensed contractor to get a certain repair or something like that. So that was one way of getting something accomplished without being a price reduction or a closing cost if it was, exceeding those amounts because it was maybe a larger. But then one time I tried to do this with a client and they said, oh, no, you have to have that done within like 30 days. Of closing
Yeah,
or 18 months.
Yeah, it's, FHA and VA won't do it at all unless it is a seasonal item that makes it impossible, and then it has a limited amount of time. So if it's something like putting asphalt or concrete or painting the exterior, they will allow an escrow, but it still has to be done. I will tell you, title companies hate them. I mean, they just don't want to be the arbiter of all the money and stuff. And it still comes down to, in terms of conventional loans, you can. And what's most common is with conventional loans is, yeah, we want this. Well, first of all, if it's like mold or radon, anything that's a safety issue, most of the time an underwriter is going to say, no, we want that done prior to closing so that we know that it's done. If it's something that's done just for a practical, something, we're going to have the masonry work done, but it can't be done because of timing until March. Well, in that case, you get an estimate from the masonry company. It gets put on the settlement statement as as being paid. And then the title company will issue that check when it's done to the contractor. So, but I always say, make it a last resort, because title companies, they will do it as a service to you, but they really don't want to be in the service of being a bank and having to, because then there's paperwork they have to have signed that it's done and everybody's happy, and then the check has to be dispersed and all that, and that's really outside the scope of work that they want to, have done. And then I haven't done it in a long time, but I also know that if it's FHA and it's something that can't be done before closing, that's also a real headache. There's some steps you can go through to get it done, but it's kind of a headache. So that's the reason I say, if at all possible, negotiate it, closing cost or price reduction, and let the buyer deal with it. When, you know, on their own, outside of closing, when it's the weather or whatever cooperates and they can do it.
Is this lender dependent? I was told by one of the lenders that the rule of thumb is they want to see 3 years of appreciable life and an HVAC, a gutter, a roof, any.
It's, an appraiser will often flag that. But it's hit or miss. Some appraisers care, some don't. And then I've seen it kicked back a couple times by the underwriter who had concerns. But it's not a hard and fast rule. It's not like, gosh, because first of all, the age of a roof and the life left on the roof is not a hard and fast rule. You could have somebody out there that says, oh yeah, we've got 5 years on it, and then someone else say we have 3 years. So unless, now the roof is the one mechanical of your home that can stop the sale of a home, but not for appraiser reasons, but for insurance reasons. Insurance companies do not want to be on the hook for a new roof on a home that should have had the roof done a year ago. So insurance companies are very commonly sending out their salespeople with binoculars to look at the roof prior to closing to make sure that it's in transferable shape, because an insurance company can step in and say, okay, the roof is at the end of its useful life and we're not going to put insurance on it unless it's fixed. So that could happen, but an appraiser doing it or an underwriter calling for it is real hit or miss. I've had homes that I swear it's gonna have 6 different conditions they're gonna call on and we get none. And then I'll have a home in perfect condition that has a piece of sidewalk like that and they want it leveled. So it just depends on, you know, the appraiser and the underwriter.
Does that insurance piece happen with a cash sale?
No. No, well, hold on, let me think. Who would care? No, yeah, the insurance company would care. Yeah, so if the cash buyer is getting insurance on it, which they're not required to, because it's the mortgage company that requires the insurance. But if it's a cash buyer, it would be up to the cash buyer, but if they're getting insurance, yeah, their insurance company could crack it out. Because what the insurance company is saying is, look, give a 40-year-old roof. We don't want to be on the hook in 3 months when a storm comes through and it needs a new roof, when you should have replaced it 10 years ago. So they can flag it and say it needs to be replaced before, or they'll put on what's called provisional insurance. Provisional says we cover everything about the house but the roof. We're not going to cover the roof. Yeah.
Copy the presentation.
Yeah, I can email it to you. Are you on the list back there?
No.
Okay, I think there's a sign up sheet back there. If you'll just sign in with your email, I'll email anybody a copy of the presentation that wants it. All right, thank you. You guys have been really patient. Thank you.
Thank
Uh-huh. I like your report. Very nice. Oh, pretty good side of the.
Yeah. it's busy.
Are you still working?
Yeah, I was 7 close.